natural gas is a very price sensitive product because the major customer or major consumer base is also the CNG and PNG sector. So with these kind of dynamics, companies, though Oil India Limited is not into gas trading, but we supply natural gas to a varieties of customers under certain allocation principles in the northeastern part, and the kind of resource pool that we have, we can ramp up the production, but the dependency of 50% import is something which gets impacted because of the geopolitical scenario. But the saving grace is, normally these are all term dated businesses or the supply assurances which happens. Therefore, there is a kind of hedging which is already available and the price point is protected. So with these kind of dynamics, we are in the process of exploring new sources. Just for the sake of discussion, the major source as we speak used to be the Middle East or the Gulf countries, and now there is going to be a shift to the USA also. So that's the way we navigate this import part, and as oil and gas E&P company, we own the responsibility of discovering more and more gas well, and that's the way we would probably negotiate this.
Thank you very much. That immediately leads me to the question, Sujay, that you represent a company, Zelestra, which globally has what? 19 gigawatts of renewable energy, and in India alone you have 5?
That's right.
So what do you see as the major challenges? Ratan spoke about the kinds of challenges that are there in the gas industry. But what are the kinds of challenges that you see that are emerging in the renewable energy area?
Thank you for having me here, and very happy to share the panel with one of the stalwarts of our RE sector, Dr. Mathur. I think the immediate challenge that we see in India is after having a very successful bidding calendar last year, close to 50 gigawatts, and which has enabled players like us. We started the shop or restarted the shop in last January 2024, and we could ramp up a 5 gigawatt pipeline thanks to government's policy of GNA, which brings in serious players who can invest in monies and secure interconnections, and only serious players matter in that methodology of GNA. No more hoarding, no more stalling the interconnection. So that was one good thing which the government did it. But having said that, so the PPAs have, the biddings have, as I said, 50 gigawatts is huge, and everybody got a share of it. But now, for example, we started with 5 gigawatt ramp up in last Q1, that is Jan to March last year, and out of which we have won bids of 2.8 gigawatts, and out of which only 1.4 gigawatt is PPA signed. So that's the disconnect. So that's one of the big challenges, short-term challenge that we see for all the IPPs to add capacities. And the other one is the modules, which what I usually state is that before we had put a lock on China, we should have discovered a key in India. And that impact you can see is happening on the tariffs. So thankfully, solar and wind, even BESS, is much below the grid parity levels. So government is also encouraging us to let this pass through of cost, additional cost coming because of non-availability of foreign modules. The pass-through is happening with the tariff, and it is still making sense for the discoms because it is still very, very low compared to their average power purchase cost.
I'm going to push you a little further on this. Clearly, the fact that you don't have PPAs for 1.4 gigawatts, what is the kind of risk management that you do as far as that 1.4 megawatts is concerned?
So what we do is we believe in early stage development, which is helping us a lot, because the way we see it is in Zylstra is that the only thing that is in control of you as an IPP is the balance of plant, the resource, and the losses associated with the balance of plant. Because the cost of module is not in your hands, the cost of inverters, the cost of debt, all these are not in your hands, and even the PPA, by the way. So what we try to do is that we invest money and secure the land in the right shape and manner so that the losses are the least and the resources the highest, so that at least if there is some movement in the all these three parameters, the cost of debt or modules, which thankfully is going on the downside, but if that moves up and down, then we have some cushion coming in from the locking of the balance of plant portion.
Let me immediately jump to you, Deepak. At Mahindra Sustain, you have already got what, approximately 3 gigawatts?
So actually 1500 megawatts with our InVIT,
Right.
and about 3600 megawatts under development at Sustain.
And you are looking at enhancing this by an order of 5 in the next few years. You heard what Deepak was talking about. I'm very, very sure that would be the case as well. What are the kinds of risk management strategies that you do in order to take care of the fact that companies are not willing to sign PPAs?
Okay, so I'll only add something further to what Dr. Mathur you said. So when I represent Mahindra's renewables, there are 3 facets of the business I represent. One is India's largest renewable energy InVIT, which is managing 1500 megawatts currently. Sustain, which is a DevCo and IPP, which is building 3600 today, and I think the plan, yes, is to do 5x of that. And third, there's an entity called Mahindra TechCo, which actually manages, it's an asset management entity which manages close to about 10,000 odd megawatts of renewable energy assets for the industry in India, Mahindra assets as well as non-Mahindra assets, and is the 6th largest in the world. So these are the 3 facets. So coming to the question, Dr. Mathur, which you've asked, in fact, I wanted to address this on 2 levels, actually, 2 dimensions. One is a sustained perspective, and I thought we should at some point in time start talking about a wider context. I want to just maybe set the cat among the pigeons on that one, but first I'll address the element pertaining to sustain. So if you look at it, I think at Sustain, we have come to realize that resilience of the supply chain is becoming and has become as important as the 3 other elements for any renewable energy project, which is land, connectivity, and finance. Till a few months, a few years, we spoke about these 3 things. The components or the key equipment was taken for granted, but the world we are in today, there's a 4th imponderable to make the developer's life and our business context slightly more difficult. That being said, at Sustain, we follow a simple philosophy. We say, let's scale sustainably, strategically, and securely. I think this is the principles in which we are trying to address our growth journey. And therefore, if you look at it, while Sajay spoke about some things, I want to talk about 4 things that we are doing as I reflect to make our supply chain and our project execution more resilient. The first thing clearly is, and which is very evident, is strategic diversification. I think we are ensuring that for every key component and key equipment, we are not dependent on any one supplier or any one geographic region. I think that's the way we are trying to do it. And let's understand, when we speak about key equipment, we keep talking about things like the modules, or we talk about turbines, or we talk about energy storage. But what we forget to address is there are things like insulators. There are things like cleaning bots. So when you talk about supply chain and you start peeling the onion, I think there are multiple things that emerge which need to be kind of protected when it comes to managing your supply chain risks. So we are trying to do that in our approach for maybe the top 30, top 40 components or subsystems, Dr. Mathur. The second thing we are doing is, and it's an imperative, it is working on strengthening the ecosystem. So we have built close to about 5,000 odd megawatts of projects, India and international. And when we started building our first set of projects a year back, it was the first time that we were going to buy Indian-made modules. We had never bought Indian-made modules. Now, we actually have worked with our identified partners on multiple things. We have worked with them in terms of the quality processes that they already had. We have strengthened them. We have actually done pre-production audits. We are doing online testing and corrective actions. We are doing reliability testing. So what we are doing currently is working with partners to the entire value chain. And that is obviously helping us, but it is also kind of making them more robust and more aligned to global practices. The third thing which we are doing is using tech to de-risk. Okay, and this we are doing in two ways. One, when we are building our projects, we are building our projects with optionality of integrating something which is different. If it's a particular kind of model of SVG, can we actually have another SVG or a harmonic filter fitting in? So the fungibility in the design is built in, so that if something comes and hits us, like a bolt from the blue during execution, we are able to get alternates in and we are able to kind of make good the project. And the second thing we are doing is, and as a DevCo company, not many do it, but we have made a commitment that we will actually start investing, and we are already doing that. We are creating proof of concepts. So while people are talking about lithium, we have actually started creating proof of concepts from some LDS technologies, long duration energy storage technologies. We are actually looking at doing some other stuff in some other areas which I would not be able to say, but the whole idea here being that we are looking at using technology as a de-risk for maybe a medium-term solution, not a short-term solution, but that's something we are doing at the... And the last but not the least is policy advocacy, but policy advocacy to actually align with the reality of what's happening on the ground.
Right.
I think that's very important. So as an industry, I think as a credible industry player, we work with various industry platforms, and we are trying to make sure that steps and policies or regulations come out which enable us as an industry, and without the developer versus OEM conflict, which is very obvious, we are trying to see more holistically, can we do something to make the country more, kind of resilient when it comes to supply chain. So
yeah,
this is the approach we are adopting.
I like the point that you made about working together with the OEMs in order to enhance quality control, because that's the only way this can happen in a industry where the technology is developing. And I'll come to you and
Can
suggest...
I just jump in here? So,
Yeah.
and I think I'll take advantage of the fact that of the wind experience that Sajay brings to the table. For instance, today we had ALMM localization, we have RLMM localization now. Now something like a generator, something like gearbox, you're talking about humongous castings, I think need to now be localized, have to be localized. And you need to get a certification from the government before those turbines can be used for projects where obviously tariffs have been discovered in the reverse auctions. Now, while there are some established players and there are suppliers, how do you make sure that this is done in an effectively seamless manner? Because I have money on the table. If my projects don't happen in December 26, their certification doesn't happen. So again, there's a partnership model. We being Mahindras, we understand the space. So can we partner with them in terms of getting that localization piece in place, so that our supplies happen and we are able to get our projects up? So there is again, so we talk about modules a lot. It's also happening there now in the wind turbines. So.
Well, I'll come back to you and Sajay and talk more about one thing that neither of you addressed, which is the battery energy storage system, which both of you are doing, but not. But I'm going to use what you talked about, critical minerals, and I'm going to use Mr. Rath's background. He used to be the Director General of the Geophysical Survey of India. So tell me, where do you see the critical minerals challenge going as far as we are concerned?
So, just to add where Deepak left, yes, lithium is a major mineral today going forward, given the thrust of on transition or EV or battery storage. But let's understand this value chain. While lithium has been the mainstay, globally we have two kinds of lithium deposits. One is the one that we find in Latin America, which is Argentina, Brazil, and Chile, the ABC of where lithium occurs as lithium chloride in salads in form of brine, and in Australia, lithium occurs in silicates in form of hard rock. Both these processes has matured, but the further downstream, after you convert these silicates or chlorides to hydroxide and take it to the battery level, further downstream technology is primarily focused in the countries that we all know about, our neighbor China, Japan, South Korea, and some of them. And there are two major global players in this lithium space. One is SQM and one is Albemarle. They have the major shares. Plus lot of mining company engaged in exploration and doing those explorations are underway. Where does India stand? As far as India is concerned, we are still importing the battery pack. That's because of, till now, the focus was primarily on the bulk minerals and then the hydrothermal minerals like copper, lead, zinc and all. Of late, there is a serious thrust by virtue of the amendment in the MMDR Act. We have got a serious thrust in not only carrying out exploration in the country, but also looking at acquisition of global critical mineral assets. So there is a national critical mineral policy which has been promulgated during the last year's budget. Honorable FM announced it. Ministry of Mines has already brought out. So there is a 30 number of elements have been identified as critical mineral. So not only Geological Survey of India today is doing exploration, the lithium as such is also being sourced around in the Indian subcontinent. And in addition to that, we also have potash, one such critical mineral. We have graphite, which is a necessity for any battery storage. There is a serious thrust. And the auctioning process of allocation is successfully undergoing. We have two kinds of auction which is happening, both at composite license basis, where you would do exploration and then should you be successful, you convert it into mine, and in mining lease. Now what constraint we foresee is, let's say we establish the resource pool. The value chain beyond the resource establishment or reserve establishment, converting it to the battery, that is the space where I am aware lot of chemical companies in the country have started working. Some of them are also jumped into the PLI scheme and they have started doing well. But that's the space, from an India point of view, we need to work more.
Can I add something here? I mean, and this goes back to many, many years ago. I refuse to say how many. When I was an undergraduate student, we were taught that whenever there is a shortage of a material, and this applies to lithium as well, whenever there is a shortage of material, the prices go up. Lithium prices have gone down. They've gone down 70% actually. But what happens is that, number one, you find more reserves through exploration, and I think globally this has been, it's available. The second thing that starts happening is that the amount of lithium used per battery keeps declining because of competitive pressures. So company X will use 500 grams per electrode, the next company will use 480. What we have seen is that over the last 10 years, there has been a 10-12% decline in the amount of lithium used in every cell. But the third thing that happens, and that goes back to what you were saying, Deepak, is the development of not-in-a-kind substitutes. So, for example, there is a subsidiary of Volkswagen which now provides sodium-ion batteries as the default instead of lithium-ion batteries. Now, sodium is much more easily available, Ratin, as you will. Consequently, we are seeing action on all of these. And so it does not surprise me that the price of lithium has not become as high as it could have. But before I move any further, let me talk to both Sajay and to Deepak about what they're doing as far as batteries are concerned and why. Why are you getting into batteries?
I think this is the answer for the news that you have read at our company is based at Madrid. Spain had the blackout there. And I think more the DISCOMs and the ecosystem here is also realizing that more storage at substation level, standalone storage also makes a lot of sense. Because we need to realize one fact that the DISCOM is spending something like 8 to 10 rupees in the block of 6 to 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. The evening peak is much costlier than the morning peak. So we have a perfect solution that if solar, which is cheap, you store it, the cost of solar is about 2.5 rupees, you store it and you can use it in the evening peak, it's still 50% less than what the DISCOMs are spending. So there's a perfect solution for our kind of a grid. And the DISCOMs and I think every state is now planning to have a standalone BESS where black power itself, they will store it and use it in the peak time. So BESS is going through the same curve. The only issue in the BESS is the track record and the big risk of fire. Safety is a big risk. The track record is not so proven on the storage side because the fire risk is a huge risk. And the technologies that we have is being driven by outside India. And if you see the Chinese technology, they have the fire retardant capacities of the walls are only 1 hour. Whereas if you see the US technologies, they have like 6 hours. So this evolving has to happen, which I think now will be driven. The missing point is I don't see the Indian OEMs. We have big names in storage batteries like Exide, we have the South Indian company, so many, Amar Raja for example, so many companies, and I don't see those names spending time, money and amount on the R&D activity. And this applies to what Deepak was mentioning, turbines. So coming back to BESS, I think it's at that cusp level where the cost of lithium is of course going down, but I think the whole black box will get unraveled. Right now you have the entire container coming from outside. So we can actually do the same thing what we did in modules, get the cells, then do the racks, and then the entire package, and the BMS, EMS, everything can be done here. So we see a lot of, I think at least 10 to 15% cost reduction the moment we do the same thing as we did in the module, which was driven by government's initiative to do the Atmanirbhar, which is a very good initiative, and now we can see most of the module OEMs are quite strong on the cell to module production facilities. So BESS, I believe that it will happen in next 2-3 years. It will be much faster than solar modules, which took about 6-7 years. BESS will take more faster track. Declining. And the unraveling of this black box and the track record and the fire safety issue, I think it's, I think in the country we have less than 1 gigawatt of battery capacity.
So, maybe, Deepak, I'm going to throw this question at you. How do you see alternate battery technologies coming up? What will be needed as far as national policies are concerned to help OEMs develop the kind of BESS technologies that India that makes sense as far as India is concerned and India can be proud of?
Sure. Dr. Mathur, with your permission, can I just extend that with a couple of examples and then jump into this? So the proof of the pudding is always eating it. Okay. And I want to speak about a like example. 3 years back, 2.5 years back, Mahindra Sustain built out a solar storage project inaugurated by our Honorable Prime Minister in October 22, which is in the town of Modera. 24/7 power in that town is solar. The Sun Temple. There are 2 shows which happen at the Sun Temple around twilight. They happen completely on solar power. This was done 2.5 years back.
Right.
So this is what solar energy combined with storage can actually deliver. The question in my head, and it was asked me by some foreign journalist a few weeks back, saying that there was one Modera, why aren't there 100 Moderas? There is no answer for that, which I could give him. So that is the power of storage combined with renewables.
But thankfully, now we have got solar and wind and batteries,
Which makes it even
providing
better.
electricity at less than 5 rupees a unit.
Absolutely.
Whereas new coal is 5 rupees plus per unit.
Absolutely. So when you talk about storage, I think that's one thing. Second, what I want to bring in is that there are 2 dimensions on storage. We have to build our roadmap based on 2 realities. One reality is lithium is there to stay. It is the only commercially viable technology at this point in time which can be accepted by renewable energy. Lithium, I believe, is actually for EVs. It is not for renewable energy integration, but we have no alternate today at that commercial
So
scale.
you don't expect us to go the way of sodium or vanadium
In the next 3
redox
to
or
5
whatever?
years. In the next 3 to 5 years, we'll be talking. Like I believe in Australia, I know that there are projects coming up with rooftops integrated with sodium ion, but they are still in test mode. So coming back, let's understand reality. Lithium is going to continue. If lithium is going to continue, then we need to understand how to optimize use of lithium. So lithium is a technology which I would say the world went NMC. NMC was used as a chemistry because EVs required power batteries and they were pushing for NMC.
Right.
That's when I think we realized we don't need power batteries, we need energy batteries which have low on charging discharging rates but need to have longer duration. So LFP technology. LFP is a technology which is having better performance and in terms of fire resistance and challenges, and what we have heard of cases in the world have all been on NMC, they haven't been on LFP. So that's one good thing. Understanding this, we need to see how do I optimize. 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours of lithium storage is the optimal range.
Okay.
Stretching to 6 hours. Now, this is what we will have to build our projects with. Building our projects with 4 to 6 hours of storage maximum, which is renewable energy integrated projects. So we can have round the clock power, we can do dispatchable power, one. There is another thing which India needs and which is we can learn from Australia, we can learn from California, we can learn from UK, is our grids are getting unstable. Today, there was a particular day in November when 45% of our energy in the grid on that day was renewable energy. On an average, we fluctuate between 15 to 23%. Now the grid becomes unstable.
Yeah.
So what's going to be required is that we need to bring in storage at the transmission side. So we actually build in storage at the transmission side. We are able to take care of the vagaries of voltage fluctuation, frequency regulation. We're able to take care of capacity shifts. And that, I think, is a value stack available in these markets. If we can get a regulatory framework which starts creating this, allows us to then take more renewables in. So this is lithium. I think that's the first part of the question which you never asked me. And the second one, I think perhaps time permitting, I'll address that.
Okay. So before we go ahead, we were supposed to start with introduction by Mukundan. Mukundan is the managing director of Tata Chemicals. He's also vice president of CII. Mukundan, can I request you to share your thoughts with us?
Sorry, Ajay. Firstly, sorry for apologies for being late. I was not going to start. I wanted to intervene on a point which we've been discussing. And I just will take it a bit forward. I think this is when we look at India's solutions, and I'm not coming from the solution provider, but I'm coming from a user of the energy. And I think the perspective of user of energy, especially coming from a hard-to-abate sector, you speak to cement, you speak to steel, you speak to, because these are all materials you need for growth of India. You cannot stop the investment in them. And I really think there is no, let me say, there is no bad boy or good boy in this whole equation. I mean, we've got to treat all of them as solutions. For India, I think we need to have a holistic suite of options which is relevant for our the condition and the context of the sector it is sort of trying to serve. And when you start thinking from that perspective, really, I think India does not have the benefit, everybody will agree, of cheap own natural gas, which is usually the transition fuel. As you move from the carbon intensity we have and you want to go to net zero, you need a transition fuel in between. You need a method to address the in between, because it's easy to say by 2070 we'll hit zero, but then you have to have milestones in between and saying what will you achieve by 2030, what will you achieve by 2045, otherwise there'll be slippages and we will probably overinvest in one sector. For example, if you overinvest in solar too much or wind too much, you have grid stability problems, which we've seen in many, many countries. I think for us, fundamentally, if we say that we are starting to view, at least from our perspective, the way we see is, we need to look at biomass absolutely critically. It is a bioresource which we cannot ignore, whether it is a terrestrial bioresource or a marine bioresource. And a lot of work needs to happen because that will come in as a solution for us in the long run. Secondly, the terrestrial and marine bioresource also would be the pathway for addressing some sectors which really don't have a solution today. If you look at aviation fuel, I mean, it is wonderful to say that we'll collect cooking gas, waste cooking oil, but world doesn't have enough waste cooking oil to sort of feed the aviation sector. We need a solution there, which obviously is going to come from a solution here. And the second piece, which I think is part of the conversation which we need to have, and I'm glad that the government has put it on the table, saying they will address the civil liabilities issue, is the nuclear. One of the things which we need to fundamentally is having private capital and also having what we call as small modular reactors. US is actually talking about micro reactor in 20-foot container, which you can plug and play anywhere. And I think once, if you go on the internet and read Pele project, that's what really it is about, building multiple micro reactor. And India has done a lot in terms of nuclear power, but it has never been able to get into the civil discussion. And the third, of course, is solar and wind, which third and fourth, which we have made terrific progress. I think, whenever there's an intermittent, let's say, power source or energy source, whether you call solar or wind, even if you take the combination, I think there is a need to store. I think people are talking about pump storage as one solution. They're talking about battery storage another solution. There is also a solution in terms of heated rock. I mean, heating the rock itself and keeping it as energy storage is what Israel is doing. So a lot of technical options are there, and all of them have a role. And I think it is very specific to each industry. Some industries need energy in form of steam. Some industries need it only in form of power. Some industries need it in form of a liquid fuel. So we need to cater to the whole suite of this. And really what will help the conversation is if we sort of build out a model by saying 2045, sector by sector, what are the solutions which, and I think this is the way, place where CIA needs to play a role. Each sector to arrive at what is its optimal mix to drive to net zero. And then sort of present a big map, which I think an association like CIA can do because it's got membership right across all its sectors. And we should uniquely be positioned to sort of play this role and present it to government. But I really want to say that this discussion is extremely energizing because it sort of highlights the issues we are grappling with when you spoke about the point about critical mineral. And when you spoke about solar, we've got a broken value chain. We are finally buying module, but we are not investing in polysilicon. Somebody has to take the risk and say, I'm going to put up few polysilicon units. Otherwise, the dependence on China is going to constantly be there. It is very good to say that we are the most solar energy intensive country along with Australia and Saudi Arabia. We are really a power-rich country, energy-rich country. I mean, if you look at it, nobody can compete with us in terms of the amount of solar energy. But for doing that, we need a backward integration right up to the value chain. So one end is a broken value chain. The other end is access to some of these critical minerals, where even the minerals are available. And as you rightly highlighted, I think Rajit rightly highlighted about this piece around half the processing, 90% of processing done in one country. And it is not that we don't have technology. We have the chemical companies have the technology to do. It is just that we've got to articulate a very cogent vision of this. And some of the leading players have to make the move. And I think time is now. I think it's absolutely correct. So it's great that you we have this panel discussing this very piece. And maybe we should build on this momentum going forward.
Thanks very much, Mukundar. I'm going to say one thing. I feel that there is a huge difference between the experiences of the developed countries and developing countries, because you still have energy demand increasing all the time during the day and at night in the developing countries. The per capita electricity consumption is more or less constant in the developed countries. Consequently, they can afford to use solar during the day, and the existing capacity meets the needs during the night. This is what is happening everywhere. Unless you are doing storage by transferring it to some other country. But go ahead.
No, I've got to intervene here, because I think if we are going to see the progress on the AI revolution, I think there is no country which is energy surplus. All of them are so deficient. The amount of power which is going to be needed will be needed in US. US is power deficient. So I think all of us, for the technological progress which is in front of us, we just have to make progress. Tremendous.
No, I completely agree with you. But what this implies is that we in India have a advantage. And the advantage is that right now you have a deficit situation. How do we meet it? We first thought we would meet it by putting in more renewables. But then what do you do at night? So that is why the development of storage technologies becomes so important for us. Storage technologies will ultimately develop here and go elsewhere. You can't count on them being developed elsewhere and coming to India. I, therefore, am looking forward for R&D policies which would help us move the BESS or energy storage technologies up the value chain as far as India is concerned. But before we end, I think we have got time for a few questions. So if you can...
Dr. Mathur, can I just say
Sure.
something? And I think this is, when we are talking about, we have been speaking about energy security and we are seeing energy transition. These are two things. If you realize the conversation has floated around this, we're looking at geopolitics, we're looking at our own independence or our own protection as a country. And I believe somewhere, if you look at conversations happening, it is energy security versus energy transition. Whereas if you look at it, actually both of them can integrate to actually create the most potent solution for us, one. Second, we should not copy anyone's playbook.
Correct.
Because I think our existence is in a geopolitical ecosystem and also our needs. We are one of the few countries in the world growing at 6.5% energy demand. Absolutely not happening anywhere else. There is no comparable country in the world, including China. So, fact of the matter is, somewhere this conversation has to be not one versus the other. It is both of them integrated end to end, like was mentioned by Mr. Mukundar. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think Deepak has made a very important point. We need to look at energy security together with the energy transition. I think that's the only way the conversation can move ahead. But let me ask you, I have a question there, 1, 2, and 3. So let's start with these 3, and then if time permits, we can come back. Ma'am.
Hi, good evening. Wonderful panel. My question is coming from something very basic and fundamental. If lithium prices are declining, as we've observed that they are, and the cost of technology is either at par or also declining, why is the cost not getting passed on to consumers, especially for electric vehicles?
Good question. Would anybody on the panel want to address this? Let's take the other 2 questions also, and then maybe we can address it together.
I'll try addressing it to
But
the
let's take all the 3 questions. Sir.
Hello, I'm Sachin. I am into solar for last 10 years. We are working in this area. So my question is, like when we go to various companies, they ask us what is the warranty, energy generation warranty that you can provide. Now the panel manufacturers do not provide any warranty. So on what basis are these warranties being asked? Is it from only the EPCs? From where are they supposed to give the warranties? So is there any legal aspect of it? So there is a lot of things happening in that warranty area. In my personal opinion, it is going against the interest of the investor. Why? Because when you ask for the warranty, you never ask for the maximum warranty. You will always ask something which is practical. So therefore, you are actually incentivizing the people for producing low quality, energy generation from the solar plants. So this is my question, if there is any solution to this.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we have a question here, sir.
Hi, thank you. Myself, Pradeep Mittal from Dalmia Sugar. I think Mr. Mukundan is just talking about the hybrid of the biomass. I think what I believe is indicating about. So, what is the technology maturity of the hybrid system with the solar?
Hybrid with solar.
Yeah, and there are many options are there. Is it hydro, which we are seeing, or maybe the hot box up of the biomass-based power plants, with the which will maybe continue with the solar during the daytime. Yeah. Thank you.
There's one more question. Huh? Yeah. We'll take one more.
I am Anil Sabu from Electrolytes Power. We are getting generation from solar, from wind, from batteries. So how you are going to address grid stability? Because it is going to be a big problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let me move on the, Vivek, I know you have a question. The problem is, I would like all of us to ask questions, and that will take forever. Unfortunately, these guys who have organized this have told me that if I don't finish by 5 o'clock, they'll hang me by the neck. Deepak, all yours.
So on the EV lithium costs, so what you need to understand is that if you look at, you're looking only at the cost dimension. Look at vehicles made 2 years back and vehicles made today. You are talking about vehicles with 120 kilometer per charge. You're talking about vehicles now with the same 70 kilowatt battery going to 507. So what you need to understand is that you are getting a vehicle now which will actually have ability to run at a much, and that also costs, one. Second, also I think we realize when you look at cars made 2 years back or technology now, the charging discharging rates. Earlier used to take 8 hours, you can do the same charging in 4 hours. So I think what happens is that there are, so you have to look at it in totality. We tend to look at it only at the piece of lithium. Commodity prices, by the way, is anyone's bet. They are going down today. I think just I was reading that there are certain mines which are closing down because they're saying there's an overcapacity. Moment that happens, and it happened with polysilicon. Incidentally, we are talking about module prices going down. Till about a year and a half back, there was a shortage of polysilicon in the world. Non-Chinese polysilicon was obviously shortage. Even Chinese polysilicon wasn't there. There was a demand-supply gap. There were actually, you saw a 5-7% increase in cost of modules. And then polysilicon again came back. And suddenly the prices started to stabilize and even went southward. So commodity pricing is a subject by itself. I think what we should look at as a consumer, I would say. I'm not talking as a Mahindra employee, I'm talking as a consumer. What am I getting for the same value? Am I getting something which is a better technology, which is going to give me better usage? I think that's what I would look at.
Thank you. Ratan, would you like to add? Okay. So I think, Mukundan, there was something directly addressed to you.
No, there were 3 questions. One was the biomass, other one was royalty. Royalty, anyone wants to go? If you could pick the question. Some royalty on solar. Warranty on solar.
Is something
मुझे question समझ में नहीं आया warranty का तो.
Okay, fine. I think we'll park it. And on the biomass piece, I think.
Just a second, but I think just to add to what Deepak said about the lady that asked, I think the point, I think what I understood is that why the cost of reduction of BESS and solar and wind is not coming to the final consumer, right? So you need to understand that the best transformation has happened, or the reforms have happened on the generation side and the transmission side. The distribution side is yet to see that reforms. So we are generating at a much lesser cost and supplying to the DISCOMs, but DISCOMs are not passing that benefits to you because they have their own reforms challenges to be completed. But if you see some of the state discoms which have been privatized, they are now very profitable. They are extending those benefits to consumers. But if you see some states, they have 20,000 crores of loss, 10,000 crores of loss. There is a lot of free power going to the farmers. So it is getting cross-subsidized. So it will take a lot of these reforms to happen that the final benefit to the consumer will come along with the AI, along with the time of the day, charging, etc. There will be a time when the smart metering is done, you will find that in the night time, for most of the discounts, they give you 5% discount if you use the energy in the night time for the industries. So you'll be able to charge your or run your washing machines or your white goods when you at that block where you'll get that benefit of reduced tariff. But it is, at least to me, it's about 5 to 6 years away.
So I think this probably is the last question we'll address, right? I think on the biomass as well as the what you call as hybrid power, I think some power companies are offering hybrid power, but really I think we all know beyond 30% today the grid stability is an issue. I think we need to address it. But in terms of company-specific solution, many companies are using heat, steam, power coming from biomass as a blend internally to report the carbon number as they are, as carbon intensity of their production. So really today you don't have one vendor giving all solutions together as one option, one package. It's coming from 3 to 4 different set of vendors, and you as a user need to manage all that. That's what I would say.
I'm going to add to what you said. I completely 100% agree with you. The challenge is that, especially with storage systems, they become energy users at some time and deliverers of energy, suppliers of energy at other times. Therefore, the grid manager needs to understand that. We don't have a single institution in India which teaches us that. And consequently, I believe it has to be our common goal to ensure that this kind of training, this kind of management becomes available. It would be horrible if tomorrow we have got, 20, 30, 40% storage and we don't know how to deal with it. Thank you. We still have 2 minutes. So Vivek, one question.
The question was coming from that perspective, because when you look at the entire set of energies, whether you're talking about solar or others, somehow or the other they have this geopolitical angle attached to it. However, when you talk about bioenergy, that's something which is totally, in our hands of the country. And probably usage of bioenergy, whether for steam or for power generation or for, compressed biogas as a natural gas alternative, are all available with us, with totally insulating us from the geopolitical portion. And somehow, we seem to be missing that in all our discussions which are talking about geopolitics and energy sustainability. That was the point that I was trying to put across, that maybe, that has to find its...
Biomass is important. Let's not forget biomass. Okay, point made. May I suggest that why don't we have one-to-one discussions now? I want to thank CII. I want to thank Mukundan, Sajal, Ratin Rath, and Deepak for their very excellent presentations, and more importantly, to all of you for asking us questions which, as you saw, put us on the table. With many, many thanks, I want to thank CII and I want to thank all of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Mathur. May I request all our panelists to please, Dr. Mathur, to please present a token of our gratitude to all the panelists. And Dr. Rath to please present to Mr. Mathur. With this, we come to the close of this plenary. We will begin with the next plenary on the blueprint for manufacturing success, building scale, competitiveness, and resilience. Please give us a moment to set the stage.
Green hydrogen project in in Dibrugarh.
Like the IOCL which Panipat did.
Yes.
Same kind of,
Yes.
I'll keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
CEO and Managing Director, JCB India Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, may I please request you to take your seats? I will request Mr. Kalyani to please take this forward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be moderating this session on building scale, competitiveness, and resilience as a blueprint for manufacturing success. We have three great panelists, one who digs up India, one who's providing power to large parts of India, and the third who's cooling India. So we have Mr. Deepak Shetty, CEO and Managing Director of JCB India. I think JCB is, it's not so much of a brand, but it's, a JCB is a JCB. Anything that digs is called a JCB. So I think JCB and Mr. Shetty have done a great job in branding his company and making it ubiquitous. Nikhil runs a very successful capital goods manufacturing company that produces power machinery. And Mr. Tyagarajan obviously runs Blue Star, which is making cooling and refrigeration equipment. The idea that we had today was to give a short overview of what Indian manufacturing could look like, and then have a little discussion. So as you well know that India's share of manufacturing as a percentage of the GDP is running at about 13 to 14% of about $4 trillion. And according to the plan of Viksit Bharat, it's supposed to get to about 25% of about $30-odd billion. So you're talking about a growth of almost 20x. There are many sectors that are going to grow between 8 to 10 times, and certain sectors that will even grow 100 times. If you look at electronics, high technology sector, medical equipment sector, capital goods equipment sector, those are all sectors that are going to outpace growth. We're at a confluence of two distinct periods of time. India's on the ascent and Europe is on the descent. European manufacturing competitiveness is in shatters, and honestly, I struggle to see how all of it is going to remain where it is. It's difficult to buy capital equipment from Europe today in a competitive price and in a time-bound manner. And similarly, automotive companies in Europe are facing intense competition from Chinese and Indian companies. So in this background, I think India is very well positioned. Indian companies are very well positioned. And uniquely, India is the only market in the world where we don't have let's say, open Chinese competition. So this is a market which is going to be contested by the whole world, and it's a market for us to of their vision for manufacturing and their experiences and some of the asks that they have in order to make this 2047 vision come alive. Thank you. I think if you'd like to say something just from your table, I mean from your seated, that's fine as well. So, Mr. Thagraj, let's talk about a short introduction about manufacturing and the growth that you see and some of the challenges, and then we can take it from there.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure and privilege to be here with this eminent panel. Air conditioning industry, as you are aware, was identified by the Prime Minister in the peak COVID period as one of the sunrise sectors. We were surprised at that point of time why we are being identified along with leather or many other important categories. Air conditioner industry got identified. We were not manufacturing at that point of time. Some 80% of the equipment were getting imported, and it was from 2021 the program to indigenize commenced with a PLI scheme introduced for air conditioners. The chair mentioned about China competition. To give you a comparison, all of you are familiar with residential room air conditioners. India's market size today we began, and the implementation was a smooth one. First of all, there were tariff, non-tariff barriers were introduced. PLI scheme came into being, and we were, in a manner of speaking, compelled to get into that, and which was a painful period for many manufacturers. By then, the Indian market had got used to the Chinese prices. So therefore, you have to manufacture for the first time high-tech products. You have to manufacture at affordable prices. That was the challenge. Then air conditioners are subject to many regulations. I keep saying even alcohol and cigarettes may not be regulated to that extent. There is energy labeling program once in 2 years that get revised. There is ozone depletion related regulations on refrigerant, global warming potential related regulations. It comes under extended producer responsibility e-waste. It is also in the highest slab of GST. The entire thing being governed under the India Cooling Action Plan, because as you will be aware that in lighting